My name's Andrew Johnston. I'm the creative director at Procreate down here in Hobart. I run a couple of teams here and work on all of the creative work that we put out into the world.
Amazing. So what is it like working at Procreate?
It's really great, actually. I was a little surprised, to be honest, when I learned that Procreate were from Hobart, from Tasmania, because it's obviously a top-selling iPad app in the world. It has been for well over half a decade. And, to have this sort of company in Hobart, of all places, was quite surprising, but really awesome. And yeah, my role's great. It really suits me to a T in many ways. I've been working with artists and designers and creatives for, sort of over 25 years. So that's sort of what I do. I kind of commission artwork and commission animations and, work with our creative teams, our content team, our design team, and just to create really cool art and design work. So yeah, it's really exciting. It's really, really fun. And also, working on the events that we are part of as well. So that's something I've had a bit of experience with over the years, events. And so, yeah, it's been wonderful so far.
And what is the purpose of Procreate? What are you guys trying to achieve as a business?
Yeah, well, look, I think, I can't speak for the whole business, and, I've only been here for sort of 10 or 11 months, but my take on it is that, ultimately we're just creating tools for people to be creative. Procreate itself is, for those who maybe don't, or for those who don't know what Procreate is, it's an illustration app and a drawing app for your iPad. So if you have an iPad and you download Procreate, you can use your finger or the Apple Pencil to draw, and it's got amazing brushes. It feels really amazing, to draw. It feels almost like drawing on paper. The way that you can work with different brushes and things. So it's a incredible tool for just people to be really creative with. Procreate Dreams, which is the product we launched late last year, is an animation product, and a product that, kind of almost anyone can jump into and animate, as long as you have a little sort of slight knowledge on animation. You can jump in there. It also has the use of the brushes and the sort of really user-friendly UI that Procreate is well known for as well. So I think it's, it's just about being creative. Procreate's all about enabling anyone to be creative through the iPad and through the apps that we have.
Yeah, I'm going to ask this question, and I don't know if we can talk about it, but what I was wanting to know was, it feels like Procreate, similar to Adobe, is trying to open up the doors to creativity to anyone. So don't necessarily need to go on a design course to be able to train yourself in the world of Procreate. And I know you've worked at Canva.
Mm-hmm.
You've worked at Canva. So what would you be comfortable with me asking you, what do you think is the difference between Canva, Procreate and Adobe, and what opportunities are there?
So yeah, I did work at Canva for roughly 2.5 years before coming to Procreate. And I think there are similarities in some ways. I think Canva, it's sort of, remit, or I can't think of the word, is, let the whole world design, bring design to the whole world, because obviously companies like Adobe have been more focused on the industry rather than necessarily just the sort of everyday person who might want to do some design work. Canva's obviously, that's where they've started. They've started with the sort of, let's let everyone design. And so that's their niche, and obviously they're doing really well. Adobe obviously is also starting to do that a little bit more with certain products. Procreate I see as being quite different in terms of yes, obviously there's still that same motivation of allowing or enabling creativity, but we're very much focused on, in particular with Procreate, just drawing and sketching and painting and that kind of thing onto the iPad. So obviously those other Adobes and Canvas and the other companies like that, they're very broad. They try to kind of include everyone. We are very focused on the iPad because we feel it's the best tool, and the Apple Pencil is the best tool to do digital artwork. So that's sort of where we focus. And the same with Procreate Dreams, the new animation app, same thing there. We see that there's real opportunity with an iPad. You can have sort of an animation studio and just walk around town with it. You can be on the bus, still be animating. You can go to the cafe and still animate. You can be on a flight and still animate. Whereas obviously some traditional animation tools, or with traditional computers or laptops, maybe is not quite as portable. So that's sort of, I think, where Procreate kind of, our difference is that we are very focused on iPad and how that can really enhance people's workflow and people's ability to create, in particular, obviously illustrations, artwork and animation.
You just reminded me, I didn't send you a link to that guy who I was talking about when we last caught up in Sydney. I need to send you a
Oh
link.
yeah.
I've seen some amazing work using Procreate. I think it's a really interesting tool, but I've never used it myself.
Well, you need to.
Yeah.
It's, you know, it is good. I mean, I'm just amazed, honestly, like at the work, like even this, you know, behind me here, you know, like that was created in Procreate. Like, and when I open it up and I just think there's no way on earth that I can create that. And, you know, if you gave me a year, I probably could, but like, you can, you know, that's the amazing thing about it, you know, and obviously because it's all digital and you can create multiple layers, you can undo things and you can go back and forth, you can, you know, yeah, I mean, I've been doing some drawing on it and it's just, yeah, incredible for that. You know, the ease that you can do things that on traditional media would really either difficult or time consuming makes it such a great tool for what it's there for, you know, and that's why it's the best selling iPad app of all time and hugely popular.
Yeah. Okay, so we've discussed a bit about Procreate, the biz. Let's talk a little bit about your career and some of the challenges, first the rewards. Maybe you can talk a bit about your freelancer life.
Yeah, for sure. I think I've had a long sort of career, and as with every career, you know, have had its ups and downs as well. I mean, I started off as a designer, but then sort of started my own projects and was one of the founders of the semi-permanent conferences that some people may have heard of, and did that for sort of a solid kind of 12 years, which is, you know, even at my age, still a fair chunk of my career. So once I left there, I think there has been a lot of ups and downs until maybe sort of more recently, because I didn't really kind of know what I was or who I was as a designer or an event manager or what was I when I left semi-permanent. It was an odd situation because I'd been there and doing that, you know, running the event, but also creative director of the event, doing a lot of design work for the event. But then you leave that and you're suddenly like, oh, wow, which area am I most interested in? Where do I feel I fit, you know, within the sort of creative world? So it was a really, interesting time. And it was kind of good to have that freedom, but also it was kind of stressful as well, actually, to kind of not, you know, have that really kind of clear path that I'd sort of, I guess, had when I was at semi-permanent. So yeah, I sort of chopped and changed a little bit in the sort of, I guess, decade since then. Originally, you know, pretty much straight after semi-permanent, I came down here to Tasmania, actually, my first trip down to Tasmania, and was creative director at a business called Foundry, which is was a creative education business down here. And that was really great in that I think it allowed me to realize that, wow, I do really enjoy the creative work. That's probably where I see myself more so than the event management and that side of things. And obviously also I became very fond of Tasmania, which is why we're back here now. But yeah, once after leaving Foundry, and I did some work for a business called Hoyne, so the sort of place branding and business. And then I think it wasn't too long after that I met you, Wayne, and we were sort of freelancing in various places, and, you know, obviously got friendly and had some similar sort of thoughts and stuff. So, and then after that, you know, so freelancing was, you know, it can be wonderful and it can obviously also be tough. You know, I think I personally found it relatively easy to get work. I guess my experience and skill set allowed me to get work. But obviously, you know, it doesn't always happen that way. So it can be stressful. And I also had 2 kids and, you know, a family to sort of manage as well, but was really glad when I got the job at Canva. That was obviously a full-time role, so, you know, that gives some stability, and that's something that I think everyone, you know, sort of potentially craves, or a lot of people do. Some people love the freelance life and that sort of chaos that it may bring. But for myself, I think I wanted, once again, having a young family, I wanted to have a bit of stability. And then yeah, Canva was great. 2.5 years there. I think the role that I was in at Canva towards the end there wasn't maybe exactly what I wanted to do, and wasn't maybe what I was quite suited for. So I eventually obviously moved on once, you know, I found the role at Procreate. And yeah, this role, and I'm not just saying this because some Procreate people will probably listen to this, hopefully, but it is incredibly suited to what I've been doing in my, you know, career, in particular my early stages of my career. So yeah, really, really happy to be here. So anyway, that's a little 5-minute synopsis of my career for what it's worth.
Yeah, for sure. And what are some of the challenges that you come up against in your career? You know, what advice would you give to somebody who's just about to embark on a design career or creative career?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's always challenges. It doesn't really matter sort of how experienced you are, or obviously through the semi-permanent events and a couple of other projects that I've run, a certain amount of, what's the word? People kind of knew who I was, and I knew a lot of people within the industry. But what I've found is it doesn't really matter kind of who you are or, what you've done in the past. It all comes down to opportunity. So you really just have to be out there finding those opportunities. It doesn't matter whether you've been working for 20 years and you've done this and you've been in this magazine and you've all of this. When you contact someone and say, hey, I'm looking for opportunities now, if they don't have one, if they don't have a place for you, it doesn't matter whether they're your friend or whether they respect you or whatever it is, the opportunity is not there. So you really have to kind of seek those opportunities, look at all the different avenues out there for you, like, recruitment agencies. I know yourself, Wayne, you've used them in the past, and I've used them, and those kind of things, and getting your portfolio out to as many sort of agencies as you can, and looking at freelance opportunities that maybe aren't normal ones, like can you contact local businesses and things like that. Not something necessarily that I've done, but I know a lot of people who have and built businesses from it, like probably yourself, Wayne, I think. So there are always challenges. I've personally taken a couple of the wrong roles where I've gone into businesses as art director or creative director, and it just hadn't worked out. And that can be hard because you think, is it me? Was I wrong for it? Was it my skill set? But that may contribute, but obviously it's also could just be that certain things aren't right for you, and you have to accept that, move on, and find what's right. So yeah, I guess there's a little bit of advice there.
Yeah. And if you were looking for candidates to come and join your team, what would you be looking for from them?
It's a good question. I think one, kind of practical bit of advice I will give is, spend enough time on your portfolio. Like your portfolio is, or this may be, doesn't necessarily have to be a PDF sort of portfolio, it could be a website, whatever that may be. It's really the reflection of you that people who are on the other side of the job application will take. In particular, creative people like myself who are in creative roles. If we're looking for another designer, whether that's a digital designer, a graphic designer, or a content creator, or whatever it might be, we will judge that off the portfolio. Your CV, obviously that's great. People will check it out and go, oh, yep, they've had some good experience. They've worked, interesting places or whatever that may be. But your portfolio really does sell you. So spend time on it, and also not just sort of make it really slick and make it like kind of work, but make it reflect your personality a little bit. Are you a really refined conservative creative, who likes the sort of simple design or what I say quote unquote simple, because simple is never simple, but that kind of really stylish design. Is that you? Or are you a bit more wild and a bit more colorful and a bit more love to use of interesting typography and that kind of thing? Make your portfolio kind of reflect who you are as a person, because it's not just the work within it that will sort of once again sell you to a potential employer. It's, I think, the personality that can come through the folio. So that's something I think that's really important, and that's something that I do and I have done here at Procreate, because we've hired several people since I started. Like that's what I look for when I look at a portfolio. And of course, the work has to back that up. It can't just be crazy looking awesome folio and then the work's not particularly great. The work has to back that up, but that's a really important part of it.
Yeah, I say the same. I think you throw a job up for Procreate, you're going to get God knows how many people applying for it. You're going to give each portfolio, 5 to 7 minutes if they're really lucky, probably shorter. So it really needs to stand out and, look great, but also sell the personality of the person. I think it's...
Yeah, definitely. It's so important. And I think most designers, naturally sort of know that, because that's what you do, right? But I think designers get a little stuck with their own portfolio. And I've personally also been in that situation where it's kind of, you feel the importance of it, and because it's your own project and you don't have any parameters or brief, you can get quite stuck. Yeah. And it can be quite a difficult thing to do. But I think that it's super important and something you need to kind of, you need to do it. You need to kind of get it done and make sure it's, it's really good and once again reflects who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, mate. Well, I've got the last section, which is some quick fire questions. How do you escape from work?
Well, the main thing, given I've got, two young kids, two young boys, in fact, that's sort of my, I don't know if I'd call it an escape, but that's, that's my, away from work, that's pretty much what I do. 95% of the time. I do like to draw and read in particular, not to plug Procreate again, but I do really love drawing in Procreate. Actually, it's changed how I draw and it's really fun. Yeah, love reading, read lots of books, and try to do a bit of sort of sport here and there. I like to play basketball, and yeah, and just see Tasmania as well. Like, it's a lovely space. Hobart's lovely, so we sort of get around and see what we can see.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to popping down at some point. I've not been there yet. It's on my to-do list, but I think I'm going to give myself maybe a month or two and just come down and hang out.
Nice. That'd be great.
Mate, so you mentioned you like to read. I'd love to get your top 3 recommendations. What should people, if you're listening now, what should they go out and go and purchase immediately?
Wow, that's a question that probably I needed to know beforehand.
All right,
I've just read. I mean, like, I've read a lot of books in my life. Like, I'm one of those people. Like, my mum instilled in me. She always had a book. Like, I don't ever recall my mum in my whole life not having a book, not reading a book. And I've pretty much been the same. So I've read potentially thousands of books. I don't know.
Right. That's a lot.
To think off the top of my head, like, what are the ones? Like, and I'm really bad as well at remembering who the author is and what the name of the book is. Like, I can remember, like, oh, that story and stuff,
Okay.
But yeah, I might. If you really want me to answer that question, we might have to re-record at some point.
No, we're not doing this again. That's
I'm just trying to think, like.
Well, mine would be, I really like Who Not How. I'm similar to you. I can never remember the authors, but I can remember the titles. So Who Not How is a really good one. The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle would be another great book. The third one, I think it might be a Gary Vaynerchuk, Jab, Jab, Right Hook. That was a really good one. A bit of a mixture of spiritual, business, and
Yeah. I personally just read, like, I try to make reading now just entertainment. Like, I used to read, like, non-fiction a lot and sort of try to learn things and stuff. And it was hard, it was like, you're tired at the end of the day. You're just like, do I really want to learn about, I don't know, more about World War II or, classic older white guy reading about World War II. And, it's just like, so now I just read, like, I read some sci-fi stuff. I read sort of just thrillers, like stuff that is, certainly not what you would call, like, fine literature, like all the Jack Reacher books. And I just want to be kind of just entertained. I don't want to have to think too hard. That's sort of how my reading has kind of developed a little bit over the years. But so yeah, that's why it makes it a tough question. But there are a few books that, once again, I just can't remember the name of it. There's one book in particular. It's about Vietnam, and it is a non-fiction book, but it's written by this journalist. I'll try to find the name and email you. It's like one of my favorite books. But like I said, I can't even remember the name or the author. So it would be a very boring answer to that question.
That's totally fair.
Yeah,
great. Well, I actually tried to I picked up this technique, and I think they call it Power Hour, and it's basically 20 minutes of something. And you split it up into you can be learning, reading, exercise, and it's just, you do it in 20 minutes. It's a game changer. I think everyone should try and learn something new or learn about something every day, and even if you just spend 20 minutes, skip the Netflix show and read instead, or learn a language, whatever it might be.
No, it's a good idea. I can't watch anything anymore. I'm like, unless it really, really, really grabs me, I'm just like, I'll watch 10 minutes on Netflix or whatever and just be like, nah, I'm just going to read. Like, it's just, I struggle to pay attention to that stuff anymore.
Yeah, I'm very similar. Okay, just a couple of more, and then we can wrap things up. So how do you go about your daily routine, and how do you set up for the day to succeed?
Yeah, I've sort of gotten in the habit of checking my calendar, and particularly the night before. I find that is kind of quite reassuring, and helps you go, okay, I know what I'm doing tomorrow. And in particular with meetings and things, I mean, there's obviously more work than just meetings, but I often need my calendar to remind me about meetings. So I find if I check it the night before, it puts it in my head a little bit more. And I'll often check in the morning as well. You know, when you wake up, you kind of have another look. And yeah, that's probably the only thing that I do. I'd say that's what might be called a routine. I don't have that many other routines that are sort of day to day.
Yeah, one again, this is something I picked up through like self-learning or self-help books. But one thing that I've brought into my life is to-do lists, but having a long list and then only tackling 6 things off that list. So, and what happens is that list always stays long, but you know you're only ever going to hit 6 things, and it really helps me to like prioritize what's important versus what can wait. And yeah, it's been a game changer for me. I'm similar to you though, mate. Like the night before, I'm checking my diary and see what's going on and what meetings I've got lined up, and then just tackling that to-do list to be as effective as possible. Because invariably in your role, people will want your time consistently and constantly.
Yeah. I joke that I can't walk through the office without getting asked sort of 2 or 3 questions. So, but that's fine. That's what you're here for, and it's fun to interact and collaborate with people. But sometimes, it is a distraction at times as well when you're sort of focusing. But it's just one of those things you learn to manage.
Yeah, I was chatting to a guy from Amazon, and he works specifically in Amazon Prime, and he was saying that they don't have any of that stuff go on in their office because everything's done firstly in meetings, but before the meeting they have these agendas that get sent out, and they can be pages and pages long. And what they do is they get people to read them before and whilst they're in the meeting, I think. And what that does is eliminates questions and people coming up to you, for example, and just going, hey, what about this? So the questions are almost answered by everyone pre-meeting, and then it's like, oh, cool, I've got my answer. I'm not then distracting that person or distracting the meeting. So everything just flows through.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of interesting, right? Like, imagine if you had like a Word document and people could just fire their questions in, you could answer them.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea, I guess. I don't know if like Amazon's such a big company that you could sort of understand that a little bit more. I might get 5 questions, but someone walking in an Amazon office might have 1,000 people around.
Yeah.
But so sure, if it works for them, I think different businesses obviously do things differently, don't they? So you've got to find what works best for you.
Yeah. Just thought it was super interesting. Like, just imagine going into a meeting room, everyone's just like says nothing and just reads from a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you can say about like some good advice that you've been given over the years by somebody inspirational to you personally?
Well, apart from the portfolio thing that we already discussed, I think the other best thing or best piece of advice that I would maybe give would be to be involved in the industry, not just sort of have a job, go home, and that's sort of it. Like, be involved in the industry, like whether that's going to events, whether that's, being part of, any sort of groups that are in your local area that to do with whatever industry you happen to be in. Whether that's obviously there's a lot of stuff, online around most industries. Be an active participant. I've always mentioned that to students and people I've spoken to in the past. Like, I think it's really important, not just for yourself, because it can then take you in directions you may not, you might meet people and go in a direction you might not have considered, but it's also just good for the industry as a whole to have more active people kind of giving their opinions and then guiding and helping people that come into the industry after them. So that would probably be I guess a potentially second piece of advice on top of the portfolio stuff.
That's great. So what's coming up for Procreate?
Well, I think this year we're sort of consolidating the new app that I've mentioned a few times, Procreate Dreams, which is the animation app. So a lot of our work this year is around just making sure people know that Procreate Dreams is available, refining it. Obviously with any new application or new software, there's things that we want to enhance in it and improve. So we're doing that this year. And also, we're going to be at events around the world to kind of spread the word about Procreate Dreams. And also, of course, Procreate, because it's still there. People are still enjoying it. So we want to make sure that people don't forget Procreate as well. So that's sort of going to be this year, I think. And then, what the future holds, I'm not so sure.
Great. I think that's pretty much it. Unless there's anything else you'd like to chat about or add?
No, that sounds great. All fine. We look forward to seeing how it all comes together and giving it a listen.
Mate, legend. I think, we've captured again some really great sound bites there. So we'll see what comes out.
Cool. Well, I'm going to go and get my free lunch because I'm starving. And I don't know, we're having some South African thing today, so that's pretty cool.
Oh, Jesus, run and grab it.
something new that I don't know that I've had South African food. So I'm going to head down and grab some because I'm starving for some reason. So awesome, man. Well, good to see you again. And let me know once you've got a recording and I'll have a listen, and looking forward to it.
Mate, you're a legend. Thank you so much.